War, Profit, and the State by Stefan Molyneux. It has often been said that war is the health of the state, but the argument could be made that the reverse is more true. The state is the health of war. In other words, that war, the greatest of all human evils, is impossible without the state. The great Austrian economist Ludwig von Mises was once asked what the central defining characteristic of the free market was, i.e., since every economy is more or less a mixture of freedom and state compulsion. What institution truly separated a free market from a controlled economy? He replied that it was the existence of a stock market. Though a stock market, entrepreneurs can achieve the externalization of risk or the transfer of potential losses from themselves to investors. In the absence of this capacity, business growth is almost impossible. In other words, when the risk is reduced, demand increases. The stagnation of economies in the absence of a stock market is testament to the unwillingness of individuals to take on all the risk of an economic endeavor themselves. When risk becomes shareable, new possibilities emerge that were not possible before the Industrial Revolution, being perhaps the most dramatic example. Sadly, one of these possibilities, in all its horror, corruption, brutality, and genocide, is war. In this essay, I will endeavor to show that in its capacity to reduce the costs and risks of violence, the power of the state is the root cause of war. All decent economists know the fallacy of the broken window, which is that the stimulation of demand caused by a vandal breaking a window does not add to economic growth, but rather subtracts from it, since the money spent replacing the window is deducted from other possible purchases. This is self-evident to all of us. We don't try to increase our incomes by driving our cars off cliffs or burning down our houses. However, it might please car manufacturers and home builders. It neither pleases us nor the people who would have had access to the new car and house if we didn't need it for ourselves. Destruction always diverts resources and so bids up prices, which costs everyone. In fact, breaking a $100 window removes more than $100 from the economy, since all the time that must be spent returning the window to its original state, calling the window repairman, deciding on the replacement, cleaning up the shards of glass, etc. It also subtracted from the economy as a whole. There will always be accidents, of course, and so repairs are a legitimate aspect of any free market. However, war can never be said to be an accident. It is never part of the free market, and yet is commonly believed to be good for the economy, and must be for at least some people, since it is pursued so often. How can these opposites be reconciled? How can destruction be economically advantageous when it is so obviously bad for the economy as a whole? We can imagine an unethical window repairman who plans, as part of his nefarious business strategy, to go around smashing windows in order to raise demand for his work. This would certainly help his business, and yet we see that in the free market, this course is almost never pursued in real life. Why not? The obvious answer could be that the business managers are afraid of going to jail, and that certainly is a risk, but not a very great one. Arsonists are notoriously hard to catch, for instance, and there are many other hard-to-trace sabotages that can be undertaken. Poison could be added to the water supply in a manner that would incriminate a water supplier, which could take months to resolve, at which point the trail would be long cold. Foreign hackers could be paid to infiltrate competitors' networks, or mount of denial of service attacks on their websites, sure doom for those who sell over the internet. Not convinced? Well, how about eBay? If you have a competitor who's taking away your business, why not just get 100 of your closest friends to give him a really bad rating and watch his reputation and business dry up and blow away? All of the above practices, while occasionally partaken of, are very rare in the free market for three main reasons. The first is that they are costly. The second is that they increase risks. And third is fear of retaliation. Externalizing military risk. The power of the state to so fundamentally shift the costs and benefits of violence is one of the most central facts of warfare and the core reason for its continued existence. As we can see from the above table regarding arson, if the person who decides to profit through destruction faces the consequences himself, he has no economic and emotional incentive to act violently. However, if he can shift the risks and losses to others but retain the benefit himself, the economic landscape changes completely. Sadly, it then becomes profitable, say, to tax citizens to pay for 800 U.S. military bases around the world, as long as the strangers in New York bear the brunt of the inevitable retaliation. It also becomes profitable to send uneducated youngsters to Iraq to bear the brunt of the insurgency. Halliburton wins, the taxpayers and soldiers lose, and wounded soldiers are further supported by forced tax dollars. Externalizing emotional discomfort. The fact that the state shifts the burden of cost and risk to the taxpayers and soldiers is very important in emotional terms. If the arson example outlined above could be tweaked to provide a profit, say by reducing the risk of blackmail or retaliation, then all the other risks would still occur to the man contemplating such violence. Such risks would cause great emotional discomfort in all but the most rare and psychopathic personalities, and the generation of fear, guilt, and worry would still require more profit than the model can conceivably generate. Once the power of taxation externalizes almost all the risks and costs of destruction, however, the terror and fear of war must still be obscured. Thus, we can see in warlike states an endless dissemination of pro-war propaganda, warnography, if you will, the destruction of healthy emotional functioning, i.e., a fear of death and a hatred of murder, helps ensure that wars will continue until the state collapses or the world flames into ash. The state is war. If the above is understood, then the hostility of anarcho-capitalists towards the state should now be a little clearer. In the anarcho-capitalist view, the state is a fundamental moral evil not only because it uses violence to achieve its ends, but also because it is the only social agency capable of making war economically advantageous to those with the power to declare it and profit from it. It is only through the governmental power of taxation that war can be subsidized to the point where it becomes profitable to certain minorities. Destruction can only ever be profitable when the costs and risks of violence are shifted to the taxpayers while the benefits accrue to the few who directly control or influence the state. Why not just reform the state? As long as the state exists, this violent distortion of costs, incentive, and rewards can never be controlled or alleviated, since an artificial imbalance of economic incentives will always self-perpetuate and escalate, at least until the inevitable bankruptcy of the public purse. As long as the state exists, mankind shall always live with the terror of war. One cannot oppose war without opposing the state. They can neither be examined in isolation nor combated separately, since much more than metaphorically, the state and war are two sides of the same bloody coin. So not only is government the number one cause of genocide, war, mass murder, massacres, and all, starvation, sanctions, and whatnot, the government is always at war with the population it claims to be serving or protecting. They basically say, give us this amount of money, follow these rules and regulations, or we will come put you in a cage and shoot you if you resist. Imagine, if to pay for Bernie's plan, we said, we can pay for the plan. We just have to invade Peru and take the resources forcibly from them. They'd say, you imperialist scum, that's immoral. But when Bernie says, we're going to forcibly confiscate resources from the American population, well, then everyone's suddenly okay with it. So governments are, not only from a utilitarian standpoint, constantly incentivized to go to war, they're also always at war by definition. So please consider this. The full article is in the description below. Thanks for watching. Keith Knight, don't tread on anyone.